Hello and welcome to the new batch of A Comic a Day. Originally this month was going to be starting the Secret 6 a day, but due to popular demand, or rather giving into the peer pressure of the 5 people that actually watched this, I'm going to be covering some Doctor Strange comics. But which comics? Well, Dr. Stephen Strange was created in 1963 in Strange Tales by the legend that is Steve Ditko, though Stan Lee did help work on the story. There's a whole rant I'm not going to get into about how Stan Lee seems to go, "Great character, slap my name on the story and do what you want," but it's not that kind of video. So, Steve Ditko created Strange, and the fun thing about Strange Tales is that it was a split book, meaning that Ditko had a very limited space to tell a tale, so they rushed the first one out in like 5 pages. Fun fact, did you know that originally he was going to be called Mr. Strange, but Lee actually thought that it sounded too close to Mr. Fantastic, so they slapped Doctor on instead? The rushed out Master of Black Magic was actually a big hit. How big of a hit? The comic book history book, Superhero Comics of the Silver Age, The Illustrated History, by Mike Benton, I think put it pretty well. College students, minds freshly opened by psychedelic experiences and Eastern mysticism, read Ditko and Lee's Doctor Strange stories with the belief of a recent Hare Krishna convert. Meaning was everywhere, and readers analyzed the Doctor Strange stories for their relationship to Egyptian mythology, Sumerian gods, and Jungian archetypes. Or if you want to sum that up quicker and in much more 70s fashion, Roy Thomas said, "People who read Doctor Strange thought that people at Marvel must be heads." And that's actually pretty accurate because Doctor Strange came about before the late 60s, early 70s trend that I like to call the Asian invasion, which I actually do attribute to at least some part this comic and people's love of it. Anyways, flash forward to issue 169, where Strange Tales gets a rebrand as a solo Doctor Strange comic, and that's where we shall begin this binge. Now, there's only about 15 issues in this run, before it leads to another book that lasted pretty long and then had him go into another split book of Strange Tales. But I'm just covering the first 15 issues of his, and then after, I'm going to cover a different comic. Warning, massive mystical spoilers ahead. Now let us enter the Sanctum Sanctorum together as the Archivist experiences some Doctor Strange days. Doctor Strange number 169, The Coming of Doctor Strange. We open in the Himalayan retreat of the Ancient One, where Dr. Stephen Strange, while being as long-winded as most late 60s characters oftentimes were, prepares to rest for tomorrow is another day of magic. Yet laying there, he cannot sleep, for every day the Ancient One grows weaker, and soon will come the day that Doctor Strange will be alone against the mystical phantasmagoria. So he does what any self-respecting man with a pencil mustache does, and lights a cigarette while musing aloud about the irony of his life. Yes, now it's time for some good old origin flashbacks. Another lifetime ago, it seems, Dr. Stephen Strange was a brilliant surgeon, haughty and self-centered, but successful in his practice. Yet one night, the roads were wet and he was speeding down a winding cliffside road, when his car hydroplaned, veering off the cliff. He awakes from his accident in a hospital, yet his attending physician tells him the worst news Stephen could ever hear. There is no saving the nerve damage to his hands, and now he can't hold his scalpel steady. He can no longer be the star surgeon he has been. In his descent from the top of society, he quits being a surgeon, and so down on himself and his lot in life, he eventually becomes a penniless drifter, which again seems like a good option in the late 60s. One night, in a sleazy dockside bar, however, he overhears 2 sailors talking about a man called the Ancient One being able to cure anything, from scurvy on up. So, throwing the rest of his possessions into Hawk, he got a one-way ticket to the east. Through some menial detective work, piecing together legends and rumors to get an approximate location, he starts wandering through the Himalayan mountains until a snowstorm hits. Barely able to see through the whiteout, the temple of the Ancient One reveals itself to him. He goes in, and the Ancient One puts on a great show of being mysterious and frightening. Yet Strange, still acting as a man of science, charges the Ancient One, bent on learning his secrets to healing. The Ancient One levitates him back, but as the snow is still fierce outside, he shall allow Strange to remain his guest. The Ancient One introduces Strange to his current pupil, Baron Mordo. Mordo's a bit cold to him, but hey, Stephen's not been a winning character either. Yet that night, Strange can't sleep and walks around, stumbling upon Mordo invoking Dormammu to kill the Ancient One. Yet Stephen Strange is pretty loud while spying in the shadows, so Mordo attacks him with magic. First with a body-stopping headache, then a literal iron clasp around his mouth as Mordo attempts to channel Dormammu's power to create the vapors of Althar. Strange runs to the Ancient One, and upon watching the Ancient One magic himself out of the attack, Strange now knows magic is real and wants to study under the Ancient One. So with that memory of unselfishness fresh in his mind, in the present the doubt and self-pity lift off the master of the mystic arts, just in time to hear his master cry out in pain, and then Strange comes a-runnin'. Merciful Vishanti, this recap was a page long, and it's not like it's a double-sized rebranding or anything, it's just that's how comics were back then. A panel meant something, and they utilized both the word and the art to showcase what was going on. Granted, art back then wasn't exactly the best. Anyways, so there's the origin of Doctor Strange, and actually, I think it's pretty good. I mean, Mordo seemed pretty awkward when you think about how selfless and good the Ancient One is, yet there's also history we don't see by cutting straight to the Doctor Strange solo series. I know, I'm heartless. Another thing is that Doctor Strange in this is certainly not drawn to be Vincent Price. I mean, he has moments where he does sort of look like, and I think this is because he's a young hotshot surgeon that knows he's awesome, so they went with a Clark Gable look to him. It's just something I thought warranted pointing out. So overall, this is oddly not the worst recap of an origin, but then again, he had a good run with Strange Tales beforehand, so that we know who the character was before he reaches the height of his own ongoing. So overall, this is not the worst recap of an origin, but then again, he had a good long run with Strange Tales beforehand to know who the character was before he reached the heights of his own ongoing, so this was a great way to making it a hopping on point. Come back tomorrow when one of Doctor Strange's most long-term villains makes his return, or for the first time depending on perspective of these videos. Hope to see you tomorrow. Doctor Strange 170. To dream, perchance to die. We start at the end of the last issue, with Doctor Strange running down the hall to the chamber of the Ancient One after hearing him cry out. Yet, the Ancient One still lay in his bed, sleeping the sleep of the dead. As Strange wonders what he heard, Hamir, the servant of the Ancient One, appears from nowhere. Hamir also heard the mental cry of the Ancient One, and also heard the name of the menace, Nightmare, an evil that stalks the byways of the dream world. Doctor Strange summons up his magic cloak and begins trying to make contact with the Ancient One's mind, but to no avail. Even his strongest incantation cannot reach the Ancient One's mind, so he begins his body to go into the Master's mind, yet the moment his astral form is about to leave him, when he is at his most vulnerable, a spell of unbelievable power pulls his very essence into the timeless ether. Nightmare pulls away his guise as Amir and monologues over the mindless body of Stephen Strange. However, Stephen is not so easily beaten as he escapes the strange sphere floating in the timeless void. Yet, with his powers at their weakest in his astral form, Nightmare enters the dreamscape, or at least I think that's where they are, to battle. Strange is barely able to break Nightmare's first attack spell, but as Nightmare gets overconfident, the Eye of Agamotto opens, blasting Nightmare with the blinding light of truth incarnate. Nightmare then pops back to the waking world, where Strange cannot go to save his master. But you know what he can do? He can mentally control his magic cloak of levitation to trap and ensnare Nightmare before he can cast any magic. Nightmare flees into the Ancient One's dreams, allowing Doctor Strange to break free of the dream dimension and get back to his physical form. As he worries about how to go after Nightmare, the Ancient One wakes up. He had allowed Nightmare to use his dreams to enter the real world because Stephen was having so many doubts about himself. So a win against someone as powerful as Nightmare would make him feel better about where he is currently. Luckily, the Ancient One's gambit did pay off, and Doctor Strange is back to knowing that he is a master of the mystical arts. This issue reintroduces Nightmare in a big way to get Strange out of his pity party, and really introduces new readers to the sort of insanity mystic fights can be. Compared to later on in his existence where Strange would create magic weapons or randomly shoot bolts at the baddie, these stories really place the tone at some pretty surreal or trippy visuals with dialogue and narration explaining the actions going on. And with that, you sort of see how the battle is paced pretty awkwardly. Basically, it lays out like Strange going, I do this, then the next page is, it's a trap, then it's, but I escape, but then it's a trap, and so on and so forth. But maybe that's not so bad, since it allows the ability to show off two of his most iconic artifacts, the Eye of Agamotto and his Cloak of Levitation. The Cloak of Levitation is pretty self-explanatory, though apparently there is some sentience or at least a close connection to Strange, since he was able to wield it from universes away. But the Eye of Agamotto is a bit trickier to nail down because it's basically been used by so many writers as a let's get him out of this. Here's where the dispelling illusion and blinding light really take center stage. And honestly, the end with it all being an Ancient One test, though still putting them both in danger, was a neat idea, though it would have been nice to see Strange kind of show a bit more, dude, seriously, that was stupid. Instead of a panel of the explanation, then him going, thanks, I totally feel better, as he walks off. But that's the late 60s for you. Come back tomorrow as Clea yet lives. Doctor Strange number 171, In the Shadow of Death. Doctor Strange descends to a Greenwich Village side street and enters his magically sealed Sanctum Sanctorum, his home in the States, and the repository for his greatest artifacts and knowledge. His faithful servant Wong greets him as he enters, wondering why it took so long and why his brow is still so heavy. Before leaving the Ancient One, Stephen was given an incantation to be said in front of the Orb of Agamotto so he can see the fair Clea once again. Yeah, I'll get to her in a minute. So Strange says the incantation, summoning the Herald of Satanish to show him the realm where those under the spell of everlasting vanishment resides. The Herald shows him, but when Stephen demands to be taken to her side, the Herald vanishes in a poof of fire and brimstone, daring to not do more than his master bid him. But Strange now knows Clea is alive, so all is not lost to him. Yet the Ancient One who put Clea where she is, told Strange that the only way to get her back would be with the help of another woman. So reluctantly, Strange asked the Orb to find Victoria Bentley. She's a character who is introduced in Strange Tales number 114, but I'll also get to her in a bit. Strange, not really thinking about it all too much, does his first long-distance teleportation spell, dragging her thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. Strange explains who Clea is, how she used to be a queen and aided Strange against Dormammu and Dormammu's sister Umar. The Ancient One, to save her, vanished her into the ether alongside the scroll to bring her back. Safe in oblivion, as it were. So Victoria, who is totally in love with Stephen, can only agree even though she has no mystic powers at all, and is literally just going so he can enter that realm. Strange then opens the Intercosmos door, and they enter hand in hand. The realm of the unknown they have entered is bizarre, and not even the Ancient One had ever been there. Yet Strange is a man on a mission, and his carelessness gets Victoria pulled into a magical evil bubble. He tries to save her via spells, but the bubble just absorbs them, so he allows himself to be absorbed into it too. He is sucked into a cosmos of unknown scope, with the ever-watchful eyes of the Master of the Unknown staring at him. He throws up this super awesome darkness cocoon so he can continue without being seen. Eventually he finds Victoria, but she won't move, too frightened. So he casts the Shield of the Sacred Seraphim on her to protect her until he returns. As he continues his quest through the oddity, one of the many strange orbs splits open and the living symbol of Doctor Strange's death attacks. There's nothing Strange can do to even slow down his attacker, yet before his attacker can land a killing blow, a ghastly aura consumes him, turning him into dust. As Strange wonders what just happened, he is being shrunk down and grasped by the hand of the mighty Dormammu. Dun dun dun! I actually feel really drained when reading one of these issues. While they're not bad reads per se, they're just kind of hard to recap. Who Clea is explained, though the actual events do happen in Strange Tales number 155. As for Victoria Bentley, she was introduced early on into Doctor Strange's story in Strange Tales, and was somewhat prominent with being both Baron Mordo's servant for a time, and also being taken as a bride for an alien, before Strange wiped her mind of all that, so she really didn't know what happened. And of course, Dormammu is the super arch nemesis of Doctor Strange, as most of the villains that Strange fights tend to be servants of Dormammu, including Baron Mordo. Yet all you really need to know is that Strange has hindered him in the past, and that makes this hothead even hotter. Now for an actual review. It's a good issue to really express why Doctor Strange as a series was very much a novel with pictures rather than a sequential comic that we know today. But it's the Silver Age, so however the story best worked, they went with. Tomorrow, come back as the duel between Dormammu and Strange begins, I think. Doctor Strange number 172, I, Dormammu. Well, we hop right back into the fight between Doctor Strange and Dormammu, which actually isn't all that one-sided, though Dormammu seems to be far more interested in gloating and talking than merely just outright killing Strange. He puts him into a holding trance to start story time. We get the story of Dormammu's soul defeat at the hands of Eternity. which was shown in Strange Tales number 146, which outlines basically everything that happened, including Dormammu casting a spell that did indeed do something to eternity and nearly sucked Strange into a void if it had not been for the Ancient One summoning him back. So Dormammu was sucked into the realm of the unknown and became the master of some local abominations. Clea randomly showed up because apparently the Ancient One's spell sent her there, and Dormammu captured her. And that's his story. Pretty unimpressive with all things considered. So with everyone trapped, Dormammu is now ready to go after the Ancient One, leaving an evil touch-and-you-die kind of monster to watch over Clea, Victoria, and Strange, as he bombs off. While Strange cannot use his own magics, he still has the Cloak of Levitation and the Eye of Agamotto on his side. The Eye of Agamotto cracks through his little cocoon crystal prison thing and shoots a beam of light that is not light at the evil Guardian. It staggers back, falling to the ground as its very essence drains. Because you see, dear listener, the beast was made of Doctor Strange's stolen magic. Of course it was. Anyways, he shatters Clea and Victoria's prisons and teleports them back to the Sanctum Sanctorum as he readies to attack the Dread One, Dormammu. Elsewhere, Dormammu is arguing with his sister Umar as he opens the doorway to the dimension. Elsewhere, Dormammu is arguing with his sister Umar as he opens the doorway to Earth so that his minions may flood the planet. Yet before they can go through the portal, Doctor Strange appears, throwing down the gauntlet of one-on-one combat to the death. And that's all until tomorrow, with basically just summing up everything that happened before the name change, which is actually why I chose to do this solo series instead of starting with Strange Tales. While it does have history you can look back on, it's new reader friendly in that they don't just overlook past events but revel in it. But even better about this issue that actually got me pretty excited for the battle to come is that Gene Colan on art actually works really well to showcase the magic outside of the narration. His art is crisp enough and more importantly not as static as previous artists so that the action, even if he's just standing there while the Eye of Agamotto shoots a baddie, feels actively happening rather than just a picture. But now that we're at the big throwdown between Dormammu and Doc Strange, can Strange beat him? Yeah, of course he will. But let's see what magic mumbo jumbo saves him tomorrow. Doctor Strange number 173, While a World Awaits. Doctor Strange stands between Dormammu and the portal to Earth. Yet Dormammu is about to sick his grotesque legions on him. However, Umar, granted for her own purposes, goads Dormammu into accepting the duel with Strange. So Dormammu summons the Great Maelstrom of Madness. Strange uses a psychic shield to protect him, but he's still thrown around a bit before conjuring the Flames of the Faltine, which disperses the Maelstrom. Yet Dormammu overextended his power with the Maelstrom, needing a moment to recover. One of his minions voices doubt that Dormammu will win, so he disintegrates him. Meanwhile, Clea and Victoria are plummeting through the trippy world between worlds, as Victoria understands that Strange will never love her, but she will always love him. At the Sanctum Sanctorum, a portal opens and Wong greets Clea and Victoria, though he does show concern for the fact that Stephen kicked them back to the physical world while he was still in danger. All of that is cast aside as there is a knock at the front door. Dr. Charles Benton shoves his way past Wong, very adamant about waiting for Doctor Strange to come back. Benton was a colleague of Doctor Strange when he was a surgeon and not a, as he put it, gaudily dressed charlatan. He's there to offer Stephen a job as a surgical consultant. Back in the realm of the unknown, Doctor Strange is bound by a magical chain and Dormammu talks and talks and talks. Umar is plotting on how to thwart her brother, but she begins to hear an inner voice telling her to free Strange and use him for her revenge. The voice is being sent via Clea and Victoria through the Orb of Agamotto. To give Umar the power to stop her brother, Clea and Victoria place their hands on the orb. She frees Doctor Strange, who has enough time to tackle Dormammu through the doors to the Earth realm. Dormammu may be free, but his hordes are trapped again. Doctor Strange casts a spell to solidify the clouds, so Dormammu cannot reach Earth. Being in the Earth realm, though, Doctor Strange's powers are not hampered, and Dormammu is a touch weaker. Doctor Strange starts to thoroughly clean Dormammu's clock with some pretty fierce spells, like one that turns the very air molecules into tiny steel pellets, and he launches them bullet fast at Dormammu. Yeah, had the CAA not been around, fairly certain there would have been some gore there. But Dormammu recovers enough to vanish into the sky, and Strange is so weary from his whole ordeal that he summons up one of his travel orbs to take him home. As soon as he poofs in, though, Benton is on him to ask him to become a consultant, yet Strange turns down the offer. Benton says he was greedy then and is greedy now, and will never be useful to anyone. While he could write this off, seeing as he just saved the world, Doctor Strange's crippling loneliness hit him as he stands alone. I'll start at the end of the issue. I truly like the concept of Doctor Strange having an inferiority complex that stems from losing what he felt his life mission was. While he does have a new mission in life, being the Sorcerer Supreme and all, he still feels his best times were when he was the best surgeon ever. So starting in his self-doubt, and even basically having his past come back to mock and bite at his current lifestyle, really does flesh the character out. While it can give some whiplash, and literally the page right before the Benton thing, he was kicking Dormammu's butt. Yet if you dust off the late 60s delivery system, it's a solid style. As for the art, well, I brought up that Gene Colan really added a kinetic aspect to the panels that, while still being totally wordy, actually feels an action is happening within the panel, and this issue, the great grand duel between Dormammu and Doctor Strange, really showcases that. When the chain links up on Strange early in this issue, it takes a couple panels to actually happen rather than, poof, force chains, and the posing and dialogue flows for what's really going on. However, I will totally maintain that now part of Dormammu's character is that he has to talk so damn much. And however, something that will be maintained throughout this entire thing is that characters just need to shut up sometimes. They all talk so damn much. Anyways, with this battle won, what awaits our troubled doctor? Come back tomorrow and find out. Doctor Strange number 174, The Power and the Pendulum. Ever since Strange saved Clea, Strange has not been talking to her, just sitting pensively. What he's actually been doing is talking to the Ancient One telepathically about what he should do. And the answer is actually relatively easy. Find Clea a home on Earth that she can build a new life for herself and stay safe. All during that, though, Victoria's been off in a corner just pining and sad that she'll never have Doctor Strange's love. Strange then walks with Clea to her new lodgings, which gets sort of interrupted by a couple jackasses in a truck catcalling Clea. But don't worry, they get theirs. At her new digs, Strange has an urgent telegram waiting, telling him to get to England, so he kisses Clea and leaves. Strange takes Victoria with him, though instead of her going back to her mansion, she tags along with him to go to the castle of Lord Necron, a name you know you can trust. But before he will tell them of his urgent message, they sit down for dinner. Necron makes a toast to the dark magic and evil, and Victoria, to be polite, drinks, but not Doctor Strange, cause he's a smart boy. The drink has been drugged, and Victoria passes out. Yet, like all of Doctor Strange's foes, it's time for Lord Necron to tell his backstory. After decades of mystical studying and practicing, a year ago to the day he summoned Strange to his castle, he was blessed by the supreme evil Satanish with a deal. If he could get another magician to take his place, in 1 year, he will gain immortality and eternal fame. Why did Doctor Strange sit through all that talking? Because the entire castle was spellbound against him. Strange is then sent to a fantastical labyrinth of doom. Trapped on a giant timepiece with Necron's voice mocking, he dodges razor-sharp pendulums before they become a fiery liquid that pulls him down to the abyss below the timepiece, and then they solidify to trap him, as Necron appears before him to gloat, as you do. But there is one hope left for Doctor Strange, as the Eye of Agamotto floats from the clasp of the Cloak of Levitation and begins to blast Lord Necron with that cool light thing it does. That breaks the magic tendrils holding Strange in place. But Stephen Strange need not attack him back, for in a plume of fire the Dreadlord Satanish appears. With Necron having no more time, he is taken to Hell or the nearest adjacent dimension. So with that whole ordeal over, Doctor Strange drops Victoria back off at her estate before summoning a bubble and heading home. This is technically a one-shot story meant fundamentally to put Satanish back up as the big bad. While he's been mentioned in incantations and in name only before, and even here it's just someone who's under Satanish's thumb, but it's still building to an inevitable confrontation, I think. As for the art, while it's still Gene Colan, the kinetic, busy feel doesn't work this time. I mean, the character models are all on point, and the magic, what little we actually see, works really well. But that flow actually hurts the backgrounds and the set pieces to be kind of too busy to really get a scale for. While it's explained what's going on in the Strange Labyrinth or wherever Strange actually is during his pseudo-battle with Necron, it just doesn't come off as weird or eerie, but more confusing with how it's laid out. And yes, that could easily be a modern viewpoint or just personal preference. Also, I get that they need to push the melodrama of Victoria not being Strange's love interest, since it is a monthly book, but by Vishanti's mercy, can she not be around for a bit? Either way, tomorrow things really get going when we see the Cold War between Satanish and Strange heat up. Doctor Strange number 175, The Sons of Satanish. Below the busy streets of Manhattan, the Sons of Satanish, an evil cult who worship Satanish, uses a scrying spell to locate Clea and the Doctor, who are walking through Central Park. Clea doesn't hate being exiled on Earth, but she feels so constricted by the fact she cannot use her powers as she would in her dimension. On a foolish impulse, she starts to fly, with people seeing and Strange needing to do some quick memory erasing as they continue on their date. The sons of Satanish summon their master, Satanish, and we get this hell of a view of Satanish. Not fully seen, but we see his torso through the flames, which is really neat looking. They ask for more power, which Satanish grants. Doctor Strange feels the menacing eyes upon him and his girl, so as they take a taxi back to Greenwich Village, he leaves his body to find where the evil is coming from. Yet as he does, rings of, and I'm going with what he calls them here, negativistic, nihilistic force binds him, crushing him. By the bands of Sitarak and the dark-souled demon of Danak, he breaks the rings. Not only that, his power is so great that he shatters the Satan sphere they've been using to watch him. He won the first round. Strange walks Clea back to her apartment, not telling her about the attack. So, alone, contemplating, he goes back to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and like any good mystic, it's time for some research. He reads the sacred book of Vishanti, learning of Satanish and his human followers. He continues reading, but then, while letting his mind wander to Clea, he realizes something terrible. There is one person that still knows of her location, the cab driver. We cut over to Clea's apartment as her own thoughts of Strange are being interrupted by a knock at her door. It's Wong, saying that Strange sent him to take her to the sanctum for safety. However, that's obviously not the case as Strange finds the cab driver, catatonic. Someone had already used his mind to find Clea, who is no longer at her apartment either. Wong and Clea are running through back alleys, but some random muggers try to, mug them. But Clea, who has been slowly weakening this entire time, disappears one of the muggers. More come after him, but Asmodeus, the leader of the Sons of Satanish, is there to guide Clea into the tunnels under the city. And with the muggers gaining, she goes with him. Dun dun dun! Like what I was saying in the last issue, Satanish is definitely being pushed as the next big bad, and the Sons of Satanish aren't actually a bad threat. I mean, yes, like usual, Strange has something up his sleeve to save himself during their preliminary attack, but that led him into actually not clearing the cabbie's mind. So that whole thing played out as a cause and effect that doesn't follow the usual action-reactionary style that the events of these comics do. But it also doesn't allow Strange to get the win outright without feeling like a stupid move. Yeah, in the context of these comics, it's actually a solid way to make the Sons of Satanish seem like a major threat, not because of their power, though if Doctor Strange really had to call upon Sitarak and some dark souls, then maybe that was the biggest he had to save himself. So maybe they are. Fun fact, while Sitarak was first mentioned in Strange Tales number 124, a year or so later, a temple of his appeared in a flashback in X-Men number 12, when explaining the backstory of Cain Marko, the avatar of Sitarak, and the criminal, sometimes good guy, Juggernaut. This is just something that always tickled my fancy, since it's a connection in-universe, but never really brought more than just a referential link, at least in this era of comics. So with Clea being taken in by an evil cult worshipping a literal representation of the standard devil, let's see how hard this gets for Strange. Doctor Strange number 176, O Grave, Where is Thy Victory? Doctor Strange is searching through the streets of New York as torrential rain beats down upon him. His magics cannot penetrate the dark spell that hides Clea from him, but there is one lead. The cabbie gave him a general lead on how they lured her away, but nothing too much. So he goes down a random alleyway nearby, and the eye of Agamotto pops itself onto Doctor Strange's forehead to shine a light on the muggers cowering behind some trash bins. But of course, they aren't actually muggers, but members of the Sons of Satanish, with a spell hiding their real outfits. And they get into a 3-on-1 duel, but Strange is taken aback by the wondrous wands they possess, which actually unleash all the combined might of every Sons of Satanish member. And Strange is trapped inside a cube of nothingness. A counterspell gets him out, but the 3 Satanish worshippers are now gone. Doctor Strange summons one of those psychic spheres that floats him around the city while no one can see him, primarily trying to lure them out. But before he could act to counter the spell seemingly out of nowhere, his bubble is crusted over with some weighty force, and he begins to plummet to the ground. Onlookers blow screaming in terror, thinking it's a bomb, but it explodes before it reaches the bottom, and Doctor Strange sorts of ghosts his way back to the sanctum through one of his paintings. He likes Mario 64, I don't know. He immediately begins to pore through the book of Vishanti, hoping for answers. But he cannot find the answers to free Clea. But clearly that's not needed, as Clea enters the scene to say that she's escaped. escaped. Strange's phone starts ringing as Clea tells him to answer it. It's Benton again, asking about the consultation job, but as Dr. Strange tells him no for yet another time, Clea attempts to stab him with a dagger. Strange luckily turned and disintegrated her weapon before she could actually kill him, yet he allows her to continue her quest as though she had killed him, as she takes the Book of Vishanti to the Sons of Satanish. She enters into a mausoleum, but Dr. Strange decides to abandon his physical body to enter as his astral self. Yet even in his astral form there is no respite, as Asmodeus ensnares him in wooden tendrils. Yet the flames of the Faltine make short work of that. He joins up with his physical body and attacks again, destroying one of the wands that grants them superior power. But each member seems to have one of those magic crystal wands, and Strange has no time to deflect the surprise second attack. So now paralyzed with his cloak of levitation and the Eye of Agamotto, and even the Book of Vishanti under evil's control, Dr. Strange and Clea are banished into a savage world and certain death. I really have no words here. I mean, the plot is just that, really spectacularly written to not making Doctor Strange seem weak by any means, but overwhelmed by numbers, and the crystals of conquest are a superb way to showcase the cult's combined might. Just as I brought up last issues, there's no stupid moves in this. It's actually a very fantastic reversal on what I brought up as a negative during the Nightmare story, where every time Nightmare did something, Strange went, "Haha, you've activated my trap card," kind of junk. This time it was the Sons that actually had a counter to Strange's every move, and in doing so there's actually a bit of tension to see what happens next. Oh, and Benton, who's sort of apparently recurring at this point, may actually think something is up with Strange's life due to the fact that he was disconnected right as Dr. Strange shouted Clea's name. So it'll be interesting if at the end of all this Strange wants to re-enter the world of the normies and take that consulting job. But tomorrow, he's trapped in a world bent on killing him without his magical items. So let's see where that goes. Doctor Strange number 177, The Cult and the Curse. Stripped of all his magical artifacts, Dr. Strange and Clea are sent to a savage world for their inevitable death. Well, world is a bit of a stretch, as they're mostly just buffeted around abstract color to abstract color, which tends to be the macabre worlds beyond our own, and dealing with some non-Euclidean threats like wild carnivorous shapes. However, Dr. Strange has a trick up his sleeve, or rather his chest, when the Eye of Agamotto pops up out of his chest to create a walkway to help find Clea. That's right, apparently the Sons of Satanish only have the amulet and not the actual eye. Yeah, I didn't know they were separate too. Back on Earth, Asmodeus is looking through the pages of the Book of Vishanti for a spell to take over the world, but the book, the cloak, and the amulet all vanish. In the Satan's sphere of scrying, they see the book is truly in the hands of the Ancient One. Asmodeus repeats their plan, needing the Book of Vishanti to learn the spell of fire and ice, to free Surtur and Ymir from their bonds. Yes, the Surtur and Ymir, those banished by Odin in Tales of Asgard. So, Asmodeus and the rest of the Sons of Satanish begin the chant for the trance of transference, in hopes to gain the book back. However, the rest of the Sons begin to weaken, as they unwittingly put all their power into Asmodeus. Having betrayed his colleagues, he kills them and takes the form of Doctor Strange to go and confront the Ancient One for the book. Back with the actual Strange and Clea, they've landed on what appears to be solid ground to rest. Yet tendrils come from nowhere and ensnare Strange, using the Eye of Agamotto this time to find and bring him the true Cloak of Levitation. It joins its master and he grows super powerful again, because apparently he left most of his magic in the Scarlet Cloak. Yet even with the power to leave, he can't, because Asmodeus has his face and form. Yeah, magic is a bitch sometimes. So he takes on the form of, well, the weird blue guy on the cover there. They pop back to Earth, Clea going to the Sanctum Sanctorum, while Doctor Strange goes to the Himalayas to confront Asmodeus. Yeah, he's already got the book in hand, but Doctor Strange is there to kick his ass. Though when Strange uses the Flames of Faltine, it doesn't kill him, for Strange is a protector of life. So Asmodeus, going mad for his lust of power, presses the attack until finally he falls to his knees, gripping his chest. His heart is unable to maintain the amount of power he has. As he lay dying, Strange takes off the mask of Asmodeus, and it is Benton! I have legitimately no idea why that was a plot point that needed to go that way. Seriously. In his final breath, Benton speaks aloud the fire and ice spell. It is up to Doctor Strange to now fight Ymir and Surtur. Well, there went the entirety of the Sons of Satanish in a pretty quick bit of double cross. The best way to describe this issue is that it almost feels like Ray Thomas needed to wrap everything up quick, and if I didn't know the future of this run, in a general sort of way, I'd say that he was being kicked off the book, and this was just a rushed editorial job. I mean, the Benton plot makes no sense, with the only explanation given is that he called Strange so Clea could stab him in the back. Great setup for something even a monkey at a typewriter could have finished. Then there's the great start of, oh man, they may have gotten the best of him, how will he get his way out of this? And it literally was just hand-waved away of, oh, they weren't real when the Sons got him. And just, yeah, I was so excited about seeing this. Roy really built these guys up, and now we'll be going against Ymir and Surtur because Satanish would allow this? I know I can't possibly fathom the greater thoughts of satanic deities, but it seems like a bad business strategy to let people start swinging sledgehammers in your store, if you pardon the comparison. Oh, and the new look for Doctor Strange adds weight to that, only because it feels like an attempt to grab some new readers. But Roy is back as writer in the next issue, so let's just see where this whole vexing thing leads. Doctor Strange number 178, with one beside him. So we start with a recap of what happened, with the reveal of Benton as Asmodeus, his death, and him releasing Surtur and Ymir. Strange actually ponders that maybe Benton was somehow responsible for the fateful crash that crippled his hands, but there's no time for that. The spell to summon Ymir and Surtur can only be undone if it were done by someone else blessed by Satanish, the supreme evil himself. And all of the sons of Satanish are dead, save for this group we met in Strange Tales number 129, without another mystic to aid his return. Yet the Ancient One is too old, and Clea is horribly weakened. So he dons his new blue-faced mask thing, and sends his astral form to Victoria Bentley. Victoria is actually in the middle of entertaining her new neighbor, Dane Whitman, also known as the Black Knight. Strange actually remembers seeing him at the wedding of Hank and Jan Pym in Avengers number 60, but they were never properly introduced. Needing to talk to Victoria and now Dane, he vanishes all the other guests at Victoria's mansion to ask for Dane's help since he's sensing the magic coming from the ebony blade. Dane agrees and he summons up Pegasus, and together they venture into the land of Tiboro and the other exiled members of the Sons of Satanish. But Tiboro is all about trying to kill Strange, so a magical fight ensues, with the Black Knight and Strange besting Tiboro, who allows them to take the Sons of Satanish. But that story ends, not in the pages of Doctor Strange, but in Avengers number 61. So basically half of this issue is recapping what has transpired, a couple of pages of reintroducing Black Knight to those that have no idea who he is, and then the battle with Tiboro, which actually goes fairly well for Strange, which is kind of the first time in forever that it went relatively simply. Now, I'm not going to cover Avengers 61 yet, but yes, the Avengers fight Ymir and Surtur, and Doctor Strange uses the Sons to save the day. Actually, something interesting I want to bring up is that these sorts of crossovers weren't uncommon around the time, and were part of what made the Marvel Universe feel special. Now, around the same time, DC was doing the same thing, but that brought DC and Marvel above the competition. Something like this was a massive event that obviously would need bigger guns than Doctor Strange to save the day. And it could be because every other month now gets a new event-level comic with special banners and everything, that this style just feels really well. It's a title crossover, not a company-wide crossover, that allows for a range of motion that doesn't mean paying for additional books, or something. In so many words, I'm just saying that I like it is all. And yes, I'll get around to at least starting the Avengers in 2017 sometime. But anyways, tomorrow we get a reprint of a Steve Ditko Doctor Strange book, so come back! Doctor Strange number 179, The Wondrous World of Doctor Strange. This is a reprint of the Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 2. So Spider-Man is swinging around the city, bored out of his mind, while a strange man, Xandu, goes into a bar and hypnotizes some goons to serve him. Xandu goes back to his abode to bemoan about needing the other half of the Wand of Watum. So he sends his goons to the Sanctum Sanctorum to punch out Doctor Strange. Though he does what he can, Strange does get in fact knocked out, and the goons find the other piece. As they leave the Sanctum, Spidey sees them and goes to confront them because they look like big dumb goons who just stole something. But Xandu tells them to attack. So they do. Yet Spider-Man's enhanced strength is no match for the goons. They even tear apart his webbing like tissue paper, before knocking him out. Man, this issue is halfway done, and so far, both of our main heroes have been owned. But luckily, Spidey slipped a spider tracer onto one of the goons before they fled. So now that Xandu has the whole wand, he can basically blast whatever he wants as long as he can see it. But now that Spider-Man is a bit more rested up, he swings in to fight Xandu. It goes surprisingly well, even getting the wand away from him. But Xandu opens a portal that begins to banish Spider-Man to a strange dimension. Yet Spidey webs the wand and takes it with him. So now, hopping through the weird world that Ditko liked every non-Earth realm to look like, Xandu sends his goons to fight Spidey to get it back. But Spidey at least holds his own as they continue to travel throughout the realms. Strange awakens, donning his cloak of levitation and using the Eye of Agamotto to find Xandu's hideout, and then getting into a mystical fight. Xandu's wand is too powerful for Doctor Strange, so he retreats to come back in his astral form to give Spidey a thought to electrically shock the goons to free them from the hypnosis. With the goons neutralized, Strange goes back to his body, and he and Spider-Man overwhelm Xandu, and they win! Strange wipes Xandu's mind so he won't remember anything and to not be evil anymore, and then leaves. Spidey, standing on a rooftop, is a bit confused by everything that just happened. Oh, that was certainly something. So as I said, this is a reprint of a story from 1965, and honestly, it's not bad. I mean, it's certainly not a Stephen Strange story as we've been seeing them, but there's something refreshing about Spidey having no clue what actually went on by the end of this. I actually say that it could be seen as objectivist humor, which Ditko was an ardent believer in, yet I don't hold that against him. He's still a prolific comic creator and writer and artist, having brought us both Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, so the fun of seeing these two totally different people playing together just had a lot of fun about it. I don't really have a lot to say about this, it's a fun romp, and tomorrow we get back to the Doctor Strange story set during his blue period. Get it? Because his new costume is, just come back tomorrow to continue where we left off. Doctor Strange number 180, Eternity, Eternity. So we begin on a wondrous world, with Doctor Strange floating, unsure of where he is, but he knows that he must find the celestial being known as Eternity. Eternity pops up to ask what he wants, and Strange actually seems a bit surprised that he's alive after that attack by Dormammu in Strange Tales number 138, though it was retold in Doctor Strange number 172 in a flashback. However, before his very eyes, Eternity shifts into the evil being Nightmare. Nightmare gloats and hints of his plan, which does involve Eternity, but he forces Strange to wake up before he knows more. Meanwhile, Wong is trying to rouse Strange anyways, as he has a date with Clea for New Year's Eve, and has been sleeping all day. But he was resting after the whole Ymir Surtur fiasco, so he deserved a little R&R. Strange casts a quick clothing spell to make him look more presentable, easily his most metro spell ever. He walks over to Clea's place, and seeing her in her usual, he summons up a cloak and hat for her too. They begin to walk to Times Square, with Clea remarking that she likes snow. They take a cab the rest of the way, and Strange finally lets the weight of the last year melt away as he's with Clea. But then, as they reach Times Square, someone from the crowd calls his name. It's Tom Wolfe, an old journalist friend that doesn't have an annotation attached, so probably not mentioned before now. Strange invites him to brunch eventually as the clock begins to ring in the new year. As soon as the 12th chime hits, though, a random pterodactyl appears and smashes into the clock. But that's not the only weird thing, as a T-Rex poofs into existence and starts to attack the crowd. Strange suits up and attacks, but each time he vanquishes one dinosaur, two more take its place. What's worse, suddenly Vikings and savages, though Strange says the savages are from a different time and place, so maybe he's being culturally sensitive there, appear and attack. With a quick incantation, he poofs them whence they came. Nightmare appears now to gloat of his truest power, for behind him stands Eternity, bound by pure cosmic force. With that power, Nightmare can bend the whole of reality to his will. Yet all he wants is a final one-on-one duel with Strange in his home dimension. Strange accepts. This is definitely the start of a new thread of stories, which isn't bad. It actually would have been a bit awkward if there was more story after the Surtur and Ymir summoning, since you really can't top that in the contained environment they're in. What's sort of funny is that we finally revisit Nightmare as a villain, even though he's appeared once in the main series as the villain, for one issue where it was just the Ancient One letting Strange get undepressed. So with only 3 issues left after this, will this story take up the rest of the run? I doubt it, but let's see what happens when Nightmare and Strange really square off. Tomorrow. Doctor Strange number 181. If a world should die before I wake. Though he's ready now, Nightmare tells Strange he has to wait for 1 hour, so Strange goes back to Clea's apartment to make sure she's back there safely. Oh, and the crowd from Times Square only saw Doctor Strange talking to himself, but now they know his name. So, even though he only has an hour, he's hiding the danger from Clea, and they both walk hand in hand to the Sanctum Sanctorum. He goes alone to his room, locking the great oaken door behind him. He changes into his blue Doctor Strange outfit, and gets pulled into the dream dimension, faced with the macabre minions of Nightmare. Yet, as they attack, the flames of Faltine open a chasm that suck them all in, but the laughter of Nightmare fills the air as he summons even more minions. Strange has to cut through his minions to earn the privilege to duel with Nightmare. Strange takes them out fast, and then Strange goads Nightmare to face him himself. Yet Doctor Strange awakens the Eye of Agamotto to strike at Nightmare. Nightmare, however, casts a counterspell, not merely negating the Eye of Agamotto, but turning the eye against Strange. With Doctor Strange seemingly defeated, there is no one to defend the barriers of Earth from Nightmare. I'll be damned, that was pretty riveting. I mean, the pacing was odd, because Nightmare literally went from the last issue going, "Hey, let's fight," to, "Wait an hour, I need to bake a quiche." But that allows for a nice scene with Clea as they walk to the Sanctum, and even a build-up during the actual confrontation in the Dream Dimension about why Nightmare was just sending wave after wave of weaklings that Strange could easily destroy in seconds. This actually feels like a total reversal of their last one-on-one in number 170, where it seems that Strange was just BSing his way through the fight to win, whereas now Nightmare seems to legitimately have the upper hand now that he has the Eye of Agamotto. So with 2 issues left and Doctor Strange seemingly beaten, come back tomorrow where there's a special guest star in the comic. Doctor Strange number 182, and Juggernaut makes 3. Wong and Clea watch the dying Doctor Strange through the orb of Agamotto, seeing his life grow dimmer. But Nightmare does not kill Strange. He prefers to gloat, summoning up 2 other Earths and asking Strange what he thinks would happen if he were to merge the past and the future with the present, how it would destroy his precious realm of reality. Yet suddenly someone yells Nightmare's name. Cain Marko, the Juggernaut, the avatar of Sitarak, is there, and he wants to get back to Earth via Doctor Strange, so he's not standing for Nightmare shenanigans. Yeah, apparently Strange actually freed him from the Crimson Cosmos so that this gambit could play out. Yet Nightmare begins to burn Strange's brain before the gambit can play out. In the real world, Wong answers the door to get a telegram for Strange, before setting it down and running back to watch the fight. Juggernaut is attacking Nightmare, defending his only way home. And Juggernaut isn't just a battleship here. He's actually learned some mystic arts, shrinking Nightmare to his size and beating the tar out of him. As they battle on, Doctor Strange finally plays his hand. He uses the Cloak of Levitation and the amulet that the Eye usually rests in to capture the Eye and free himself. Juggernaut and Nightmare stop, seeing the now freed Doctor Strange. Both agree to strike at him, yet they only shoot a mirage. But their combined strike hits a target, the bonds holding Eternity. Eternity is now free, and he is mightily pissed, and sends Nightmare and Juggernaut into oblivion, before launching Strange back to Earth. After a hug from Clea, Wong brings Strange his telegram, only now the name of Stephen Strange is changed to Stephen Sanders. Now Doctor Strange has a secret identity for a clean slate. Apparently Eternity cared. This was an interesting story overall. By and large, I think I was totally wrong about what Roy Thomas was going for with the whole renaming and whatnot. I mean, we've got a totally new look for Doctor Strange with his face covered, so he's actually in more of a superhero mode. And now he actually has an actual secret identity. So while I could say that this book should not be going for the superhero tropes, since it's not really that sort of book at all, it feels surprisingly natural. As for the random Juggernaut appearance, it was also surprisingly a good addition because he is a mystical threat, and I'm assuming he was sent to the Crimson Dimension in X-Men, but it was a nice twist to actually make this battle with Nightmare feel very fresh and different. Plus, the art, as always, works well to show that kinetic flow, and even in the Dream Dimension, it never felt like Jean was just phoning in the backgrounds, though that could also be because Tom Palmer did a great job with set pieces, not just action, and they finally hit their stride. But sadly, tomorrow is the last issue of the first volume of the Doctor Strange solo series. Will it wrap everything up? I'll spoil it for you now. No, it doesn't. But hey, come back tomorrow because we finally find out what the telegram did say. Doctor Strange number 183. They Walk by Night. As Doctor Strange flies to an unknown destination, we get the basics of what led him to the flight. An old friend sent him the telegram asking for help, though Clea thinks it to be a trap and begs him not to go. Yet of course he goes. He reaches the somber brownstone, introduces himself as Dr. Sanders, and is brought to the master of the house. Yet Kenneth Ward, the man who pled for his help in the telegram, does not know why he sent the message. Even the Eye of Agamotto cannot get an answer from him. So, Strange retires for the night, summoning a magical image of himself sleeping as he takes his mystic blue form and flies into Ward's room. He breaks the sinister spell he sensed earlier, and Ward now remembers the danger. Ward was on an expedition in Asia when he found a mystic valley in the Himalayas with strange geometry and statues. And, more importantly, a sacred idol with a terrifying inscription. Yet 3 persons, serving the Undying Ones, burst into the room to find the location of the idol. Doctor Strange does what he can, but they're pretty strong, matching his own power. That is, until he tears the curtains away and the morning sunlight turns the attackers to dust. But the strain of the entire endeavor killed Kenneth Ward, so now Strange must find the idol with no help to save the world. Unfortunately, this is the last issue of the Doctor Strange solo series, and the story proper, introducing the Nameless One and expanding on the Doctor Strange mythos, is continued in Submariner number 22, but we won't be covering that. So as a final issue, I would actually say that it's got me interested in checking out the Submariner comic to see how it continues. I hate when comics do this though. If you're going to end a series, at least let the series have a final issue. I would have actually felt that it had been a much stronger ending if they didn't even have this issue, and they finished it last issue, with Strange now having an alias and everything like that, and then having this be a Submariner 2-parter. So overall, this run of Doctor Strange, though actually being 50 or so issues into his story, worked well to not so much express who the character was, but with Roy Thomas at the helm, brought him into the 70s and giving us the basis for what would be the format for Doctor Strange to come. Well, except that he loses the blue suit, and I even think the alias, by his next solo series, but story format is what I meant. While that would change when action became more prominent during the late 80s and 90s, it's a solid take on the character that, while Ditko was and is the master, Roy Thomas is an underappreciated writer who, when he finally hit his stride with the character, did some pretty fantastic things. If you want to pick these up, Essential Doctor Strange Volume 2 actually has all of these, plus Avengers 61 and Submariner number 22, and a few more that I didn't cover here. It's like $30 on Amazon, but only $17 on Comixology, so if you want to read it, then definitely do digital. But I also have an unending parade of children wanting to destroy everything, so I tend to prefer digital copies lately anyways. And that's all we'll be covering for Doctor Strange this month. What lurks around the corner? Well, let's say that I should have technically covered this book a couple weeks ago. Don't forget to check out my other channel, links in the description for ComicSins and First Issues Now. As always, stay golden, Inklings, and come back tomorrow for Revolution.